Hello, friends. Tonight we are going back to a quieter time, before the noise of the modern world began. Now, let your shoulders drop, close your eyes, and imagine the glow of a single oil lamp flickering in the dark. Let the rain outside your window blend with the rain falling on an ancient roof 2,000 years ago. I'd love to know where in the world you are drifting off from tonight. Let me know in the comments. We are stepping into the sandals of a man who owned the world, not with an army, but with an idea. A time of marble and dust, of empires rising and falling like the tides. But our journey begins not with a birth, but with an ending. The air in the prison cell is cool, carrying the faint scent of damp earth and old stone. It is spring in Athens, 399 BC, and the sun, a tired orange ball, is sinking behind the hills of Attica. Its last rays stretch long fingers across the rough, hewn floor, touching the bare feet of an old man. His name is Socrates. You are not there, not truly, but you imagine it. You feel the chill of the stone through his thin tunic. You hear the muffled sobs of his devoted friends just beyond the heavy wooden door. The silence within the cell is profound, a deep well of stillness that swallows the distant clamor of the city. No shouts of merchants, no clatter of chariots, no arguments from the agora, just the soft, rhythmic breathing of the man. He sits on a simple wooden bench, his hands resting lightly on his knees, palms open in a gesture of acceptance. His face, usually animated by fierce questioning, is now serene, a landscape of wrinkles smoothed by an inner calm. The lamplight, when it finally comes, casts dancing shadows on the rough stone walls, making them seem alive, breathing with the old man's steady breaths. A cup is brought. It is an ordinary clay cup, but it holds a dark liquid chilled hemlock. The word itself sounds like a sigh, a final release. He takes the cup, not with a tremor, not with a grimace, but with the quiet grace of one receiving a simple draught of water. He holds it for a moment, the coolness seeping into his fingertips. A gentle warning. The friends outside grow quieter, their weeping now a hushed, almost internal sound, like the rustle of dry leaves. He speaks, his voice clear and untroubled, a final lesson whispered into the twilight. He talks of the soul, of its journey of justice. Words like pebbles dropped into a deep pool, creating ripples that will spread for centuries. You imagine his gaze, steady and unwavering, fixed not on the fading light, but on something far beyond the prison walls, something invisible, eternal. Then he drinks. Slowly. The liquid is bitter, earthy, the taste of the very ground from which life springs and to which it returns. He lies down on the bench, as instructed, and the coolness begins its ascent. First, the feet. A subtle numbness, like the quiet sleep of a limb. It creeps upward, a gentle tide washing over his ankles, his calves. He describes it calmly to his friends, guiding them through his own dissolution. The legs grow heavy, unresponsive. The sensation is not pain, but simply a fading, a letting go. The last sliver of sun disappears. Darkness gathers in the corners of the cell, softened only by the flickering lamp. The world outside, the world of noise and fear and injustice, recedes. Inside, there is only the quiet journey, the slow surrender of the body. His breath grows shallower, a soft whisper against the silence. And then a final stillness, no struggle, no outcry. Just the quiet acceptance of the end. The heavy wool cloak on the bench remains, damp from the evening chill. The scent of old incense and dry earth lingers in the air. This moment, this absolute tranquility in the face of death, is the seed from which another mind, a younger mind, will grow its entire philosophy. It is the silence of the cell that echoes through eternity. Now, let us drift back, further in time, before the hemlock, before the prison walls. Let the image of the old philosopher fade, and in its place, picture the vibrant, golden city of Athens, many decades earlier. This is the world into which Plato was born, a world of both dazzling light and encroaching shadow. Imagine the grand houses of the Athenian aristocracy, their courtyards cooled by the shade of olive trees, their inner chambers adorned with frescoes depicting gods and heroes. Here, the air is thick with the scent of jasmine and myrrh. You can almost hear the gentle strumming of a lyre, the murmur of educated voices discussing poetry and politics. This was Plato's inheritance. His lineage was as noble as any in Athens, tracing back on his mother's side to Solon, the great lawgiver, and on his father's side to the very kings of Athens, Codrus and Melanthus. He was born into a world of privilege, of expectation, of a destiny seemingly carved in marble. The year was 427 BC. The Parthenon, that magnificent white marble crown on the Acropolis, still gleamed with the freshness of recent construction. Its columns rose, perfect and unblemished, against the brilliant Aegean sky. Yet, beneath this dazzling surface, the city was already bleeding. The Peloponnesian War, a brutal, exhausting conflict between Athens and Sparta, had been raging for years. The echoes of distant battles, the whispered tales of naval defeats and land sieges would have been part of Plato's earliest memories. The world he knew, for all its beauty, was a gilded cage, shimmering with glory but slowly being consumed by a long drawn-out agony. Walk with me through the marble colonnades of his family home. Feel the cool touch of the polished stone beneath your bare feet. Hear the soft rustle of silk as his mother, Perictiane, moves through the sun-dappled rooms. See the ancient family scrolls, carefully preserved, detailing generations of influence and power. Plato was not meant for a simple life. He was trained in wrestling, in music, in rhetoric sudi, all the arts necessary for a young man of his standing to excel in public life. He was strong, handsome, intelligent, and destined for leadership. Yet, there was a melancholy woven into the fabric of his childhood. The war was a constant, gnawing presence. The plague had ravaged Athens years before his birth, but its memory lingered like a ghost in the city's collective consciousness. He would have seen the faces of soldiers returning from campaigns, weary and hollow-eyed. He would have heard the laments for those who would never return. The city's famed democracy, once a beacon, was showing cracks under the immense pressure of war and political instability. The once unbreakable walls of Athens, though still standing, felt less secure. Imagine a quiet evening, the last light of dusk painting the sky in hues of purple and gold. From a high balcony, young Plato might have looked out over the sprawling city. The hum of daily life would have been there, softened by distance. But perhaps if he listened closely, he could also hear the faint, almost imperceptible sound of a city slowly unwinding. The distant flicker of watchfires on the city walls, a reminder of the ongoing conflict. The grand marble statues in the public squares, once symbols of eternal strength, now seemed to bear a silent, knowing sadness. His family, though aristocratic, was not immune to the political turmoil. Relatives like Critias and Charmides would become prominent and notorious, figures in the oligarchic regime of the 30 Tyrants, a brief but brutal period that followed Athens' defeat. This close proximity to power and its corrupting influence would deeply shape his understanding of justice and governance. The world was not as perfect as the perfect forms of the Parthenon. It was complicated, messy, and often cruel. The old certainties were crumbling like an ancient family tree losing its leaves, one by one. This sense of a fading golden age, of beauty intertwined with decay, would become a recurring theme in his thoughts. A heavy wool cloak draped over the shoulders of a young man watching his world change. Now, let the sounds of the noble household fade, the harp's melody dying into silence. We move from the quiet elegance of the private home to the bustling, sun-drenched heart of Athens, the agora. The year is still uncertain, but Plato is a young man, perhaps in his late teens or early 20s, with aspirations of becoming a great tragedian, a playwright whose words would echo through the stone amphitheaters. Imagine the Athenian agora, not as a silent ruin, but as a vibrant, noisy marketplace teeming with life. The air is thick with the scent of fresh bread, roasted meats, exotic spices, and the earthy smell of pottery. Merchants hawk their wares, their voices rising and falling in a rhythmic chant. Cobblers hammer leather, blacksmiths clang metal, and philosophers debate. The ground beneath your sandals is dusty, worn smooth by centuries of footsteps. Sunlight, bright and unrelenting, filters through the awnings of stalls, dappling the scene in shifting patterns of light and shadow. Plato, a young man of refined tastes and noble bearing, would have moved through this crowd perhaps with a scroll of his latest poetic efforts tucked under his arm. He would have observed the faces, listened to the snippets of conversation, gathering material for his plays. He was looking for the grand narratives, the heroic deeds, the tragic flaws that make for compelling drama. But then he sees him, an old man, not a merchant, not a politician, not a soldier, just an old man with bare feet, a simple, often stained tunic, and a face that is, by all accounts, remarkably ugly. A snub nose, thick lips, bulging eyes, a satyr-like appearance that belied a profound inner beauty. This is Socrates. He is not selling anything, not buying anything. He is simply asking questions. His voice is not loud, not commanding, but it has a strange way of cutting through the din of the market. It is like a clear, cool stream flowing through a noisy landscape. He asks about justice. He asks about virtue. He asks about beauty. Questions that seem so simple, so fundamental, that people are caught off guard. They offer confident answers, the kind they've always heard or believed, and then Socrates begins to unravel them. Imagine the scene. A small circle forms around him. A proud general, a respected politician, a celebrated poet. Socrates, with a twinkle in his eye, would gently probe, his questions like delicate surgical instruments, seeking out inconsistencies, exposing assumptions. What is courage, my friend? He might ask. The general confidently defines it. Then Socrates asks, but what about a man who fights bravely out of ignorance? Is that courage or madness? The general's brow furrows, the crowd murmurs. Plato, standing at the edge of this circle, perhaps initially dismissive of this odd, barefoot old man, finds himself drawn in. The questions are not debates in the usual sense, not arguments to be won. They are an unburdening of thought, a slow peeling back of layers. It is like watching a tangled knot slowly untie itself. The answers are not given, they are discovered, or more often found to be elusive. The dust motes dance in the sunlight, catching the light as they drift. Socrates' plain wool cloak pillows gently in the breeze. His gaze, though sometimes playful, is always intense, always focused, inviting you to look inward. He doesn't preach, he doesn't lecture. He simply asks, do you truly know what you think you know? This encounter, repeated over days, weeks, months, would be a seismic shift in Plato's young life. The grand tragedies he had imagined writing suddenly seemed less important than the quiet internal drama unfolding in the agora. The pursuit of fleeting glory on the stage paled in comparison to the relentless pursuit of truth in the marketplace. The sounds of the city, the shouts and laughter, begin to recede into the background. All that remains is the sound of Socrates' voice, a gentle, insistent hum, guiding the mind to untangle its own complexities. This gadfly, as he called himself, stinging the complacent into thought, became Plato's spiritual father, forever altering the trajectory of his genius. The world outside was still loud, but a new profound silence had begun to grow within him. The silence of that Athenian prison cell. The final, gentle breath of a man who chose truth over life, echoed not as a scream, but as a profound internal shatter for the young Plato. It was not a sudden, violent explosion, but a slow, quiet crumbling of the world as he knew it. The democratic ideals he had once admired, the city he had loved, all seemed to dissolve into dust and ashes in the wake of that injustice. How could a city that valued freedom and debate condemn its wisest citizen for simply asking questions? How could the very people who claimed to seek truth be so afraid of it? He walked away from Athens, not in anger, but in a deep, weary disillusionment. The familiar streets, once vibrant with philosophical chatter and the bustle of the agora, now felt cold and alien. Each stone, each column, seemed to whisper of betrayal. The very air felt heavy with unspoken grief and the bitter taste of a hemlock cup. He watched the city recede from the stern of a small ship, the white marble of the Parthenon fading into the hazy distance like a forgotten dream. The rhythmic slap of the waves against the hull became his new companion, a steady, indifferent pulse against the turmoil in his heart. His journey began in Megara, a short sail across the Saronic Gulf. Here, among fellow students of Socrates, he sought solace and a quiet place to mend his shattered understanding of the world. He spoke little, listened much and slowly, painstakingly, tried to reassemble the fragments of his belief. The quiet discussions, the shared memories of their master were like balm to a wounded soul. But Megara was only a pause, a brief harbor before the vast, unknown sea. The call to wander grew stronger, a deep-seated urge to see the world beyond the narrow confines of Attica, to seek answers where Athens had failed. He traveled south across the endless blue expanse of the Mediterranean. Imagine the gentle rocking of the ship, the sun warm on your face, the vastness of the sea stretching to the horizon in every direction. The only sounds are the creak of the timbers, the rustle of the sail, and the endless, whispering song of the waves. Day after day, the same horizon, the same sky, allowing your mind to drift, to empty itself of the noise and the pain. Then the sands of Egypt. The air grew dry and hot, carrying the scent of ancient dust and distant spices. The colossal pyramids rose from the desert floor, silent sentinels of a forgotten past, dwarfing human ambition and sorrow alike. He walked through bustling markets, inhaling the unfamiliar aromas, observing the intricate patterns of life that had unfolded for millennia, indifferent to the rise and fall of Greek city-states. He spoke with priests in their temples, their voices low and resonant, filled with the wisdom of generations. He saw the precise, ordered lines of their hieroglyphs, the careful construction of their mathematical and astronomical knowledge. There was a sense of enduring order here, a stability that Athens, in its democratic fervor, seemed to have lost. The shadows of the pyramids stretched long and cool across the sand, offering a momentary respite from the relentless sun and from the relentless questions in his mind. From Egypt, his journey led him further west, to the shores of southern Italy, a region then known as Magna Graecia. Here, a different kind of order awaited him, the mystical, numerical world of the Pythagoreans. Imagine stepping into a quiet courtyard, far from the clamor of the city. The air is still. Perhaps a gentle breeze rustles through a nearby citrus tree. On the sandy ground or etched into a stone tablet, you see perfect geometric circles, squares, and triangles. The Pythagoreans believed that numbers were the fundamental essence of reality, that the universe was governed by elegant mathematical principles. He listened to their hushed discussions about harmony, about the music of the spheres, about the profound beauty of abstract forms. It was a revelation. While Athens had offered the chaos of human opinion, and Egypt the stability of ancient tradition, the Pythagoreans presented a world of pure, unchanging truth, accessible not through the senses, but through reason. He saw how a simple theorem, a perfect geometric proof, could be eternal, uncorrupted by human folly or the passage of time. The shifting sands of politics, the fickle nature of the crowd, these could never touch the perfect logic of a triangle. He would spend years in these foreign lands, a quiet observer, a diligent student. The vastness of the Mediterranean became a symbol of the vastness of his own inquiry. The loneliness of the journey was not a burden, but an opportunity. It was in the monotonous rhythm of the waves, the endless expanse of the desert, the silent contemplation of geometric forms, that his mind began to heal, to reorient itself. He was no longer just a disillusioned Athenian citizen. He was a seeker, tracing the outlines of a new, more enduring reality, a world beyond the shadows on the prison wall. The distant sound of a single flute, playing a simple, melancholic tune, would sometimes drift across the water at dusk, a reminder of home, but also a quiet affirmation of the path he had chosen. Each new landscape, each new conversation, was a thread in the intricate tapestry of his evolving thought, slowly, patiently weaving together a new vision for what a just society and a truly good life might look like. After years of wandering, of absorbing the wisdom of distant lands and the solitude of the open road, Plato felt the pull of home once more. Not the Athens of political turmoil and injustice, but a different Athens, one redefined by his own evolving vision. He returned, not to engage in the clamor of the agora, but to cultivate a sanctuary of thought, a haven for the pursuit of truth. Imagine a quiet path, winding its way just outside the city walls, away from the bustling port and the clamor of the market. You walk beneath the dappled shade of ancient trees, their gnarled branches reaching towards the sky like old, wise arms. This is the sacred grove of Academus, a place consecrated to the hero Academus, a hero of Attic myth. Here, the air is cooler, carrying the scent of dry earth, wild herbs, and the distinctive, slightly bitter fragrance of olive leaves. Plato chose this spot for his school, his academy. It wasn't a grand, imposing structure, but a collection of simple buildings nestled among the trees. Think of it as a quiet retreat, a place where the mind could breathe, free from the distractions of the world. The sounds here are gentle, the rustle of leaves in a soft breeze, the distant, rhythmic chirping of cicadas in the heat of the day, the quiet murmur of a clear stream flowing nearby. Perhaps you can hear the faint splash of water as it tumbles over smooth stones, a constant, soothing melody. Students and scholars gathered here, drawn by Plato's reputation, by the memory of Socrates, and by the promise of a deeper understanding. They would walk together along the winding stone paths, their sandals making soft, scuffing sounds on the worn flagstones. There were no loud debates, no shouting matches, but rather the low hum of conversation, the gentle exchange of ideas. Imagine a group of figures, cloaked in linen or wool, pausing beneath the wide canopy of an ancient olive tree, their faces illuminated by shafts of sunlight filtering through the leaves. Their voices are soft, almost whispered, as they explore complex questions of justice, beauty, and truth. Perhaps you can hear the soft scratching of a stylus on a wax tablet, or the gentle rustle of a papyrus scroll being unrolled. In the shade of the porticos, students might sit on simple wooden benches, listening intently as Plato, now a man of mature wisdom, expounded on his theories. His voice would be calm, measured, guiding them through the intricate pathways of logic and reason. The academy was more than just a school. It was a community, a living laboratory for the life of the mind. They shared simple meals, perhaps olives from the very trees around them, fresh bread, and wine diluted with water. The evenings would bring the soft glow of oil lamps, casting long dancing shadows on the walls as discussions continued late into the night. The stars above the grove would be impossibly bright, a silent, glittering ceiling to their intellectual endeavors. In this peaceful setting the mind could expand, unburdened by the pressures of the city. The flowing stream became a metaphor for the constant flow of ideas, the endless pursuit of knowledge. The sturdy ancient olive trees, deeply rooted and enduring, symbolized the timeless nature of truth. This was a place where minds could grow, like the trees themselves, reaching for the light, yet grounded in the fertile earth of shared inquiry. The gentle sounds of the grove, the soft light, the quiet contemplation, all conspired to create an atmosphere of profound tranquility, a perfect cradle for the birth and development of groundbreaking ideas. This was Plato's answer to the chaos he had witnessed, a quiet fortress of reason in a world often lost in illusion. Now, let us imagine ourselves in a different kind of space, a profound and ancient place that exists not in the physical world, but in the landscape of the mind. Close your eyes and picture a deep, vast cave. It is dark here, almost utterly dark, save for a single, flickering fire burning somewhere behind you, a little distance away. You are not alone. There are others here, seated beside you. All of you are chained, your necks and legs bound, so that you can only look straight ahead towards the far wall of the cave. Your gaze is fixed, unmoving. The air is cool, perhaps a little damp, carrying the faint, earthy smell of stone and the distant subtle scent of wood smoke from the fire. You can hear the gentle clinking of your own chains, a soft metallic whisper as you shift slightly. From behind you, from the direction of the fire, you hear sounds. Perhaps the shuffling of feet, the murmur of voices, the indistinct sounds of objects being moved. But you cannot turn to see. On the wall before you, the only thing you have ever truly seen are shadows. They dance and shift, cast by the fire behind you, animated by the movements of unseen figures passing between the fire and the wall. You see shapes, the silhouettes of people, animals, objects, all distorted and exaggerated by the flickering light. A shadow of a bird might appear as a monstrous winged creature. A shadow of a man might seem like a towering giant. These are your reality. These shifting, dancing forms are the only truth you have ever known. You have spent your entire life in this position, watching these shadows. You and your fellow prisoners have named them, discussed them, perhaps even debated their meaning. You believe them to be real, solid, the very essence of existence. You have never questioned their origin, for there is nothing else to compare them to. This is your world, a world of two dimensions, of fleeting and substantial forms. The only light you know is the fire's restless glow. The only truth, the shadows it casts. Now imagine slowly, painfully, that one of you is freed. The chains are loosened, the bonds fall away. It is a strange, unsettling feeling. This newfound freedom. Your muscles are stiff, unused to movement. Slowly, tentatively, you turn your head. The fire, which was once just a distant source of light for the shadows, is now a blinding, painful glare. Your eyes, accustomed only to the dimness and the flat images on the wall, recoil from its intensity. The shapes you thought were real, the shadows, now seem like faint, ghostly outlines compared to the vibrant, painful reality of the fire itself. It is a struggle to move, to walk towards the mouth of the cave. Each step is an effort, each moment of exposure to the fire's direct light a torment. You stumble, you squint, you want to turn back to the familiar, comforting darkness. But something pulls you forward, a quiet, persistent curiosity. And then you reach the entrance. The light that streams in from outside is not the warm, flickering glow of the fire, but a vast, overwhelming brightness. It is the sun. Your eyes burn, tears stream down your face. You can see nothing clearly at first, only an indistinct blaze of color and light. It is too much, too intense. You might want to close your eyes to retreat into the shadows of the cave, but slowly, gradually, as your eyes begin to adjust, shapes begin to emerge from the dazzling brilliance. First, perhaps the shadows of objects, then their reflections in water. Then the objects themselves, trees, flowers, the sky. And finally, the sun itself, the source of all light, the ultimate reality. You realize with a profound, quiet shock that the world you knew, the shadows on the wall, were merely faint, imperfect copies of a much grander, more vibrant, and utterly real world outside. The fire in the cave was just a small, crude imitation of the sun's magnificent power. You look back at the cave, at your fellow prisoners, still chained, still gazing at the dancing shadows. You see their world now not as reality, but as a dim, deceptive illusion. And you understand with a deep, silent certainty that you can never truly go back. The truth you have seen, the light you have experienced has transformed you. You may try to tell them, to explain the wonders you have witnessed, but your words will be met with disbelief. perhaps even hostility. For how can they understand a world they have never seen, a light they have never felt? How can they believe that the shadows they hold so dear are not, in fact, the ultimate truth? This is the allegory of the cave, a quiet invitation to consider the nature of reality, of truth, and of our own perceptions. Let the images drift through your mind: the dark cave, the flickering fire, the dancing shadows, the blinding sun. Feel the quiet journey from illusion to understanding, from darkness to light. And as these images gently fade, allow your own mind to find its own quiet truth, its own place of peace. You close your eyes, and the flickering shadows of the cave melt away. The sun, once a blinding shock, now recedes, and you find yourself floating in a space beyond light, beyond shadow, beyond the very dust of the earth. This is where Plato invites us, to a realm not seen with the eyes, but understood by the mind alone, a realm of perfect, unchanging forms. Imagine a perfect circle, not the one you draw with a compass, which will always have a tiny imperfection, a microscopic wobble in the line, or a slight blur of graphite. Not the ring of moonlight on a still pond which ripples with the slightest breeze. No, imagine the idea of a circle that is utterly, absolutely, flawlessly circular, a concept so pure, so precise, that it exists only in thought. This is a form. Now extend this thought. Think of a perfect triangle, a perfect square, a perfect sphere, smooth and cool to the touch, its surface utterly without blemish, its dimensions flawlessly symmetrical, its essence radiating pure geometric truth. These are not things you can hold in your hand. They are models, blueprints, the eternal templates from which all physical things are merely pale, imperfect copies. They exist somewhere in a dimension of pure intellect, silent and still. The chair you sit on, the bed you lie in, the tree outside your window, the very dog sleeping at your feet. Ferdy, each of these is a particular, imperfect manifestation of a universal form. There is a form of chairs, a form of beds, a form of trees, and even a form of dogs. And these forms are not created or destroyed. They do not age. They do not change. They simply are, eternal, immutable, existing in a realm that is utterly separate from our fleeting, messy world. It is a cold beauty, this realm of forms, a beauty of logic, of crystalline structure, of absolute certainty. There is no warmth here, no scent of damp earth, no rustle of leaves, only the quiet hum of perfect existence. You drift through it, a silent observer, passing by the form of justice, a radiant, balanced scale that never tips, the form of beauty, a shimmering, ineffable glow that transcends any particular flower or face, the form of goodness, a pure, unblemished light that guides all things towards their highest purpose. And beneath these grand forms there are simpler ones, the form of whiteness, a pure, untainted hue, the form of sweetness, a taste that never cloys, the form of heaviness, an intrinsic weight that never varies. Our world, Plato believed, is a shadowy reflection of this perfect realm. Like the prisoners in the cave, we see only the shadows on the wall, mistaking them for reality. But the philosopher, the one who truly seeks, turns his gaze away from the flickering fire and towards the source of the light itself. This journey is not easy. It requires discipline, the shedding of sensory distractions, the quiet focus of the mind. You let go of the specific scent of rain on the pavement, the particular melody of a bird's song, the unique texture of a worn stone. Instead, you reach for the essence, the form of rain, a form of stone. They exist in a timeless dimension, a silent library of perfect ideas, waiting to be apprehended by the soul. Think of the starry sky above you. Each star a point of light unique in its flicker and position. But there is a form of star, a pure concept of stellar existence residing in that other realm, and the vast, dark void between them. Perhaps that too is a reflection of the space where the forms reside, a boundless expanse of pure potential, filled with perfect, unseeable templates. This world of forms provides a profound sense of order. In a world of constant change, decay, and uncertainty, Plato offered an anchor. A place where truth is absolute, where beauty is eternal, where justice is unwavering. It is a refuge for the mind, a silent, unshakable foundation upon which all understanding can be built. You can feel the stillness of it, the quiet, reassuring presence of something that simply is beyond the grasp of time or corruption. It is a place of pure thought, where the soul finds its truest home, unburdened by the noise and confusion of the material world. Just pure, perfect, unchanging truth. The abstract forms begin to soften, to warm, to take on the gentle glow of a late-night gathering. You are no longer floating in the cold, clear void, but have descended into a more intimate space, filled with the murmurs of conversation and the soft clinking of pottery. Imagine a grand house in Athens on a cool evening. The air is still, perhaps carrying the distant scent of jasmine from a neighboring garden. Inside, a group of friends, philosophers, and poets have gathered for a symposium sympiantrarty. A drinking party, yes, but one where the wine flows freely and ideas flow even more so. Candlelight casts long, dancing shadows on the stuccoed walls, making the faces around the table seem both vivid and dreamlike. The wine, a deep ruby red, catches the light in the cups, reflecting the flickering flames. You hear the gentle pouring, the soft scrape of a spoon against a ceramic bowl, the occasional, almost imperceptible hiccup from Aristophanes, the playwright, who has already had a little too much to drink, but even his humor is mellowed by the late hour and the warm atmosphere. The topic for the evening, proposed by Eryximachus the physician, is love, not merely physical attraction, but eros, the driving force that propels the soul. Each man around the table offers his own speech, his own understanding. You listen, half-lidded, to the various voices, some earnest, some playful, some deeply profound. Phaedrus speaks of the ancient, primal power of love, inspiring courage. Pausanias distinguishes between vulgar and heavenly love. Eryximachus sees love in the harmony of the universe in medicine and music. Then comes Aristophanes, with his whimsical tale of original humans, spherical beings with 4 arms and 4 legs, split in half by Zeus, forever seeking their missing other half. His words are light, amusing, but carry a deeper truth about the yearning for wholeness. And Agathon, the host, a young, handsome tragedian, praises love as the most beautiful and virtuous of gods. But it is Socrates, the old barefoot philosopher, who truly commands the room, even as he humbly claims to be merely repeating what he heard from a wise woman named Diotima. His voice, though not loud, cuts through the wine, induced haze, clear and compelling. He speaks not of love itself as a god, but as a demon, a spirit, a mediator between the mortal and the divine. Love, he explains, is the child of resource and poverty, forever desiring what it lacks, forever seeking beauty and goodness. And this seeking, this yearning is not static. It is a journey, an ascent, a ladder. You can almost feel yourself beginning to climb. The first rung, he suggests, is the love of a beautiful body. You are drawn to its grace, its form, its fleeting perfection. This is the simplest, most immediate form of attraction, warm and human. But then as you gaze at that beauty, you begin to realize that the beauty in one body is like the beauty in another. And so, you move to the next rung, the love of all beautiful bodies. A broader appreciation, a more generalized sense of aesthetic delight. The specific fades, and the universal begins to emerge. From there, the ascent continues. You realize that the beauty of bodies is transient, superficial. What truly endures, what truly shines, is the beauty of the soul. The kindness, the wisdom, the courage, the integrity of a person. This is the third rung, the love of beautiful souls, of noble characters. The candle light seems to brighten slightly, reflecting in the eyes of the listeners as they nod in agreement. And from the beauty of individual souls you climb higher still, to the beauty of customs and laws of institutions that foster virtue and order in a society. The beauty of a well-ordered city, a just community. The gentle clinking of wine glasses grows softer, almost like a distant chime. Then, a crucial step, the beauty of knowledge itself. The pure, unadulterated joy of understanding, of grasping a truth, of seeing the connections between ideas. The beauty of mathematics, of philosophy, of science. This is where the mind truly takes flight, where the intellectual flame burns brightest. You feel a gentle warmth spreading through your chest, a quiet excitement for the pursuit of wisdom. And finally, at the very top of this ladder, is the ultimate goal, the apprehension of beauty itself. Not a beautiful face, not a beautiful poem, not a beautiful law, but the form of beauty. Pure, absolute, eternal, unchangeable, unadulterated, existing independently of anything else. It is the same perfect cold beauty you glimpsed in the realm of forms. But now, seen through the lens of love, it feels less austere, more inviting. It is the source from which all other beauties flow, the ultimate object of all yearning. As Socrates finishes, a profound silence settles over the room, broken only by the crackle of a dying ember in the brazier and the soft breathing of the men. The wine is still, the candles burn low, their wax dripping slowly, forming intricate patterns on the candelabra. You feel a deep sense of peace, a quiet understanding that the human heart, in its deepest longing, is not simply chasing fleeting pleasures, but is being gently pulled upwards, towards something eternal, something truly divine. This is the gentle upward pull of love, guiding the soul towards its highest truth, step by quiet step, in the warmth of shared wisdom. The night deepens, and the ascent continues in your dreams. The warmth of the symposium begins to recede, replaced by a cooler, more imposing atmosphere. The intimate circle of friends dissolves, and you find yourself no longer in the familiar olive groves of Athens, but on a ship sailing across the shimmering, azure waters of the Mediterranean. The sun is bright, but a sense of unease hangs in the air, like the salty spray that catches on your face. This is not a journey of philosophical discovery, but a perilous venture into the heart of power. Plato, now an older man respected and renowned, was lured by a dangerous dream. He had written his great work, The Republic, envisioning a perfect city ruled by philosopher kings, a city built on reason, justice, and the forms. But could such a city exist in the real world? Could a philosopher truly guide a ruler? His chance came from Syracuse, a powerful Greek city, state on the island of Sicily. Dionysius I, the tyrant, had died, and his young son, Dionysius II, had inherited the throne. Plato's friend, Dion, a relative of the new tyrant, believed that the young ruler could be educated, shaped into a true philosopher king. He invited Plato to come to put his theories into practice. So, Plato sailed to Syracuse, not once, but 3 times. Each journey was filled with hope, a quiet anticipation of shaping history. You can imagine the grand palace of Dionysius, towering stone walls, polished marble floors that echo with every step, tapestries depicting scenes of battle and hunting. There are courtyards filled with exotic plants and rooms adorned with intricate frescoes. It is a place of immense wealth and power, but also a place of whispers, of suspicion, of gilded cages. Dionysius II was young, perhaps eager at first, but ultimately weak and volatile. He enjoyed the idea of being a philosopher, but not the hard work, the discipline, the self-reflection that true philosophy demanded. He was surrounded by flatterers and schemers, men who saw Plato's influence as a threat to their own power. You can sense the tension in the air. The grand halls, meant to inspire awe, now feel like a labyrinth. The suspicious glances from the courtiers, their eyes following Plato as he walks with Dionysius, trying to explain the subtleties of the forms, the necessity of justice. The heavy silence that falls when Plato speaks of moderation and wisdom, contrasting sharply with the tyrant's impulsive desires. Plato tried to teach Dionysius geometry, believing that understanding perfect shapes would lead to understanding perfect ideas. He tried to instill a love for pure reason, but the young tyrant was too easily swayed, too fond of luxury and power. The palace, once a symbol of potential, slowly transforms into a prison not of stone and bars, but of political intrigue, mistrust, and the crushing weight of unmet expectations. You might hear the distant clash of swords from the barracks, a reminder of the brute force that upheld this regime, or the hushed conversations behind closed doors, plots thickening like the heavy Sicilian wine. Plato, the calm, rational philosopher, found himself trapped in a web of ambition and paranoia. Dionysius grew jealous of Dion, banishing him. Then he grew suspicious of Plato himself. The philosopher, the man who sought to educate the world, found himself under house arrest, a prisoner in the very palace he had hoped to transform. The grand chambers, once filled with the promise of intellectual discourse, now felt cold and empty, echoing only his own frustrated thoughts. You might imagine yourself standing on a high balcony, looking out over the sprawling city of Syracuse. The sun dips below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. But there is no peace in this beauty. Below, the city hums with a different kind of life than Athens, a life built on fear and fleeting pleasure, not on reason and virtue. The palace walls, so grand from the outside, feel like a cage from within. Eventually, through the intervention of powerful friends, Plato was allowed to leave. His escape was likely a quiet affair, a ship slipping away under the cover of darkness, carrying him away from the gilded prison. You can feel the cool night air on the deck, the gentle rocking of the boat, the rhythmic splash of oars in the water. Looking back, you see the distant lights of Syracuse, sparkling like false promises. The grand palace a dark silhouette against the moonlit sky. A lonely lighthouse beam sweeps across the dark waves, a beacon of warning rather than guidance. Plato returned to Athens, weary but perhaps also relieved. The dream of the philosopher, king of perfectly applying his theories to the messy reality of politics, had been shattered. He had seen firsthand that the world of forms, the world of perfect ideas, was far removed from the world of human ambition and imperfection. And in that realization, there was a quiet, almost melancholic acceptance. The world would not be perfect. Not yet. But the pursuit of goodness, the quiet work of shaping minds in the academy, that was still possible. The grand palace and its intrigues fade into the background, replaced by the gentle sway of the ship, carrying him back to the familiar, comforting quiet of his own thoughts. The exhaustion of the journey settles over you, a profound weariness from the struggle between ideals and reality. You close your eyes, letting the gentle rocking motion lull you into a deep, dreamless sleep. He spent his final years not lost in the bustling agora, nor trapped in the intrigues of Syracuse, but in the quiet contemplation of the cosmos itself. His gaze, once fixed on the abstract perfection of forms, now stretched beyond the human city, beyond the earthly sphere, to the celestial dance. In the twilight of his life, Plato turned his mind to the grandest question of all, the making of the universe. He wrote the Timaeus, a dialogue where the creation of the world is described not as an act of arbitrary power, but as a meticulous, divine craftsmanship. Imagine an ancient workshop, not on earth, but in the boundless expanse before time began. There, a figure he called the demiurge, the divine craftsman, looked upon a chaotic, formless void, not a creator ex nihilo from nothing, but an intelligent artisan, shaping pre-existing matter according to the eternal blueprints of the forms. He didn't invent perfection. He simply copied it and pressed its order onto the raw, swirling elements. Feel the vastness of that primeval chaos, a swirling, formless mist without direction or purpose. Then picture the demiurge, with a vision of perfect order in his mind beginning to bring structure. He didn't use hammers or chisels, but the pure, unyielding tools of geometry and number. He saw the perfect circle, the perfect sphere, the perfect triangle, and sought to embody them in the material world. The universe, in Plato's vision, is a living, breathing organism, a single, perfect animal, endowed with a soul. Its body is the cosmos itself, its limbs the stars and planets, its breath the endless cycles of creation and decay. And at its heart, beating with a rhythm of cosmic harmony, is the soul of the universe, binding all things together with invisible, intelligent threads. Listen closely, and perhaps you can almost hear it, the music of the spheres. Not a sound that registers on human ears, but a profound, inaudible symphony, born from the perfect mathematical ratios of the planets as they glide along their orbits. Each celestial body, a note, each revolution, a phrase, together, a cosmic melody of order and beauty, playing eternally in the silent vacuum of space. It is the sound of absolute precision, of perfect alignment, a lullaby whispered by the very fabric of existence. The universe, according to Plato, was built from the simplest, most fundamental shapes, the Platonic solids. Imagine tiny, perfect tetrahedrons, forming the element of fire, sharp and piercing. Octahedrons, light and airy, for air. Icosahedrons, smooth and flowing, for water. And cubes, solid and stable, for earth. These are the fundamental building blocks, the cosmic Legos from which all matter is constructed. Feel the cool, hard logic of these perfect forms, how they interlock, how they create the very ground beneath your feet, the air you breathe, the water that flows. Even the human body, in this grand design, is a microcosm of the universe. Our head, a perfect sphere, mirroring the cosmic orb. Our eyes made to perceive light, to reach out to the stars. Our soul, a spark of the divine, capable of understanding the very mathematical principles that govern the heavens. In the Timaeus, Plato also touched upon the legend of Atlantis, not as a fantastical tale of adventure, but as a sober reflection on the rise and fall of civilizations. A powerful, advanced society, once favored by the gods, that grew arrogant and corrupt, eventually sinking beneath the waves as a consequence of its hubris. It was a story that served as a cautionary echo, a reminder that even the most impressive earthly achievements are fleeting, always subject to the larger indifferent forces of time and divine judgment. It was another way of saying, look beyond the temporary. Look to the eternal. As you drift now, let your mind expand beyond the walls of your room, beyond the city, beyond the earth itself. Imagine yourself floating weightlessly in the deep, silent expanse of space. See the distant, shimmering galaxies, each a spinning island of stars moving with an ancient, unhurried grace. Feel the quiet hum of cosmic machinery, the invisible gears of the universe turning with perfect mathematical precision. Your worries, your anxieties, your small earthly concerns begin to shrink, becoming infinitely small against this backdrop of endless, majestic order. There is a profound peace in realizing that you are part of something so vast, so ancient, so perfectly constructed. You are a tiny, intricate piece of this grand design, and in that, there is a deep, comforting sense of belonging. The universe, in its silent, eternal dance, holds you gently within its embrace. Plato lived to be 80 years old, a remarkable age for his time. His mind, though perhaps slower, remained keen, still reaching for the highest truths. It is said that he died peacefully in his sleep, perhaps at a wedding feast, or simply in his own bed, his final breath a soft sigh into the night. Picture him now, an old man, his hands no longer strong enough to wield a sword, but still capable of holding a pen. Perhaps he sits at his simple wooden desk in the academy, the last rays of the setting sun casting long shadows across the scrolls. He has just finished a sentence, or perhaps a thought, and his hand, with a lifetime of wisdom etched into its lines, gently lowers the stylus. The ink dries on the papyrus, capturing a final idea, a last question. He closes his eyes. A deep, slow breath. The sound of the evening cicadas begins to fill the air from the olive groves outside. The scent of dry earth and ancient knowledge hangs heavy in the room. The candle on his desk flickers, its flame dancing for a moment, then growing still, casting a warm golden glow on his serene face. His breathing becomes softer, shallower, merging with the quiet rhythm of the night. The weight of his body, the aches of age, the endless striving of his mind, all begin to recede. The world he knew, the city of Athens, the struggles with tyrants, the debates with students, the grand theories of forms and the demiurge, all these begin to fade, like distant echoes. For Plato, death was not an end, but a return, a release the soul, that eternal, divine spark finally sheds its earthly garment, the body, which he considered a temporary prison. Imagine his soul, light and unbound, rising gently from its physical shell, like mist descending from a still lake at dawn. It doesn't struggle, it doesn't fear. It simply floats effortlessly towards a destination it has always longed for. It returns to the realm of forms, not a place, not a physical location, but a state of pure being, of perfect truth, beauty, and goodness. Imagine it as a homecoming to a place you deeply remember, even if you've never consciously been there. A place where every question finds its answer not in words but in pure understanding, where every form is perfectly realized, shimmering with an inner light. Feel that sense of ultimate relief, of profound peace. A long journey is over. The striving has ceased. The mind, no longer burdened by the limitations of the physical world, is finally free to merge with the source of all knowledge, all perfection. It is a quiet, gentle dissolving into eternal harmony. Outside his window, the moon rises, a silent silver orb in the deep velvet sky. Its light bathes the olive trees of the academy, the stone paths, the empty classrooms. Everything is still, peaceful. The students sleep, unaware of the profound transition that has just occurred. But the academy itself, the ideas nurtured within its walls, will live on. The candle has gone out, but the light of his thought will continue to illuminate generations. His face in the soft moonlight is utterly tranquil, a quiet acceptance of the great mystery. The journey of the soul has begun its final, most peaceful ascent. The river of time flows on, indifferent to individual lives, yet carrying their legacies like precious cargo. Plato's physical presence faded into the Athenian dust, but his ideas, like the eternal forms he championed, became immortal. They rippled outwards from the academy, a quiet current that would shape the intellectual landscape of the Western world for millennia. Imagine the parchment scrolls, carefully copied by hand, traveling across the Mediterranean, across continents. The whispers of his philosophy, echoing in the halls of Alexandria, in the bustling markets of Rome. See the Neoplatonists, Plotinus and Iamblichus, in later centuries, taking his ideas and weaving them into elaborate tapestries of mysticism and spiritual ascent, pushing the soul's journey even further towards the divine one. Then, picture the monks in their quiet scriptoriums during the Middle Ages, their quills scratching softly on vellum, preserving his words, often through the filter of Christian theology. St. Augustine, one of the most influential Christian thinkers, found in Plato's separation of body and soul, and his concept of eternal truths, a profound resonance with his own faith. Plato's forms became, in a sense, the thoughts in the mind of God. His shadow stretched, long and deep, across the very foundations of Western religion. The Renaissance arrived, a vibrant explosion of art and thought, and Plato was rediscovered, his original texts inspiring a new generation of humanists and artists. Think of Raphael's school of Athens, where Plato, with his finger pointing upward to the realm of forms, stands at the very center, the intellectual heart of the Western tradition, eternally conversing with his student. Aristotle. His ideas sparked new inquiries into human potential, the ideal city, and the nature of beauty itself. Even in the Enlightenment, when reason seemed to challenge all ancient authority, Plato's questions remained potent. What is reality? How do we know what is true? What is justice? These are the enduring inquiries he bequeathed to us. His cave allegory, that powerful image of shadows on a wall, continues to resonate in our modern world, in our media-saturated lives, in our debates about truth and illusion. It's the philosophical DNA woven into our collective consciousness, a silent background hum to all our striving. Tote's ideas can be found in the most unexpected places. In a science fiction film about escaping a simulated reality, you might see the cave allegory playing out. In a debate about universal human rights, you hear echoes of his search for eternal justice. In the pursuit of scientific theories that elegantly explain the universe, there is a Platonic yearning for underlying mathematical order. We are, in a profound sense, still living in the shadow of the forms, still asking the questions he first posed over 2 millennia ago. Now, let that river of time flow gently over you. Feel its soft, cool current, washing away any lingering thoughts, any worries that cling to the edges of your mind. The voices of history, the grand ideas, the ancient whispers of philosophers, they begin to fade, becoming softer, more distant, like echoes in a vast, empty chamber. The images of marble and dust, of starlit nights and olive groves, begin to dissolve, blurring into a peaceful, formless mist. Your awareness softens, expands, and then begins to contract, gently, peacefully, back to the quiet center of your own being. You have journeyed through the mind of Plato, walked among the forms, contemplated the cosmos, and witnessed the quiet passing of a great soul. And now it is time for your own quiet return. Let your breath become slow and deep, like the gentle ebb and flow of a tide. Feel the weight of your body settling, softening, growing heavier with each passing moment. The world outside, with all its demands and distractions, is receding, becoming a distant, indistinct hum. There is only this moment, this breath, this profound, enveloping stillness. The questions have been asked, the answers have been sought, and now there is only the quiet acceptance of rest. Sleep now. Let the deep, calm waters of unconsciousness welcome you. Drift into the realm where all forms dissolve, where all questions are answered in the silent peace of slumber. Good night.